you are really like. This is him showing what God is really like. He's a father. And he says, if you know how to give good gifts to your children, how much more shall your Father which is in heaven give good things to them that ask him? Now when people say, well, God's got a different definition of good than we do. No, he doesn't. Jesus said he's got the same one, except his is better. His good is way better than our good. What he's saying is, if I know how to give good things to my children, God is so much better. He's so much more loving even than we can conceive of. That's what Jesus is trying to convey to us. Now, the next one I want to read, I want to get some background from the Psalms. There's a prophetic psalm. And the reason I say prophetic, Psalm 103, verse 13. Elliot, if you could give me that. 103rd Psalm, verse 13. The reason I say prophetic is because this talks about God in this New Testament sense, in the way that we're talking about him this morning. And when in the midst of reading the Old Testament you find passages that talk about this New Testament relationship with God as a father, I say they're prophetic. David was a prophet. Jesus called David a prophet. And he's prophesying of, he's got this glimpse of what God is really like too, which really is not going to be revealed until Jesus came to reveal it. But notice what it says here in Psalm 103. Like as a father pitieth his children, so the Lord pity them that fear him. I like the, let's see, is it the verse before that, Ellie? Give me verse 12. I like what it says too. Go back to one more, verse 11. As the heaven is high above the earth, so great is his mercy toward them that fear him. And then the next verse says, as far as the east is from the west, so far hath he removed our transgressions from us. And that's a pretty interesting thought there. As far as the east is from the west. You know, the conception of east and west, those are opposites, aren't they? In other words, if you're going east, you're never going to run into west. See, they don't ever meet. Is that right? So what he's saying here is, as far as east is from the west, so far has he removed our transgressions from us. In other words, they're never going to meet. That's how far he's removed. He did that. Now he's saying this about our transgressions, our human faults, our frailties, our sins, our mistakes, our errors, our disqualifying things. He says he's taken those things and removed them from us, and not just a little distance away where he can bring them back again. He's put them away so far that it's like east from west, that they never meet. And then the next verse, here's the context. The next verse then he says, like as a father pitieth his children. That means he has sympathy. A father has sympathy for his children. So the Lord pitieth them that fear him. Now, keep that in mind. That's a good thought, isn't it? You notice the word father. He like David does. He likens God to a father that has sympathy for his children, and he's saying God is like it. Now, here's an example that Jesus uses to show us. Again, he's showing us what the Father is really like, what God is really like by calling him Father. In Luke's Gospel, chapter 18, this is one of the best stories, I think, that illustrates the point. Luke's Gospel, chapter 8. No, it's not 18. That's not the one. Sorry about that. Wrong chapter. I'll get it in a second here. Maybe it is 18. No, it's not 18. Hold on. 15. Sorry. Oh, verse 11, yeah. Luke's Gospel, chapter 15, verse 11. This is a familiar story, but just because it's familiar, that doesn't keep us from reading it again. And again, we're reading it for a special purpose today. We're looking for Jesus revealing to us the character and the true nature of God as a Father. Remember, he said, I have revealed your name. And the name that he revealed was Father. That means the character and nature of God that he wants to reveal to us is God as a Father. Okay, verse 11 says, a certain man had 2 sons. That would make him a father. And the younger of them said to his father, Father, give me the portion of goods that falleth to me. And he divided to them his living. Not many days after, the younger son gathered all together and took his journey into a far country. And there he wasted his substance with riotous living. Now, don't you love the King James translation? It's very polite here. The riotous living. That's, we never use that kind of language. I never say riotous living. And he had we call this story the prodigal son. And we think prodigal means somebody who went away. Prodigal doesn't mean somebody who went away. Prodigal means wasteful. And it means he wasted what the father had given. See, he said, give me what is coming to me in my inheritance, and I'm going to use it now. So he went and wasted it all. He squandered it in wild spending. That's what that meant. Wild partying. That's what we would say in today's lingo, in our jargon. We would say he wasted the inheritance in wild spending. Verse 14 said, when he had spent all, Now, by the way, I don't know how rich the father was here, but it was going to be his inheritance, and he got it ahead of time, and he didn't just waste part of it. He wasted all of it. He spent it all. Man, he just wasted the whole thing. You would think this is, it makes you kind of cringe inside. He wasted the whole thing. He got it ahead of time. He didn't wait for the father to die. He wasted it ahead of time. And it says, when he had spent all, it's all gone now, then there arose a mighty famine in the land, and he began to be in want. So he spent the whole thing in wasteful, not that he made some investments and they went bad. In wasteful living, he just wasted it, see. Nothing commendable about this kid at all. So he wasted it all, and now there's a famine, and he began to be in want. He doesn't have any money anymore. He spent it all. He wasted it. Verse 15. And so he went and joined himself to a citizen of that country, and he sent him to the field to feed swine. Swine means pigs. Now, that's bad enough for us to think about. Pig. Have you seen pigs on the farm? You ever seen what they eat? They're dirty, and they live in the mud, and they eat what's called slop. It's ugly, and they smell bad, and they wallow around in the mud. It's bad enough for us, but in the Jewish culture in which Jesus is speaking here, the Jewish culture, that pig is considered unclean. It's supposed to be an unclean animal. You're not supposed to eat pork, and you're not supposed to even have anything to do with it. And so this is, for Jesus telling the story to a Jewish audience, a very distasteful situation. So he's saying this kid got what was his from the father, and he wasted it, and now you might say he's at the bottom of the barrel. Not only has he wasted the father's money, but he has now found himself in the pig pen. A very distasteful, and everything's bad here. Okay, verse 16 says, and he would fain have filled his belly with the husks that the swine did eat. That means he would have, if he could, eaten what the pigs were eating. And if you've ever seen what pigs eat, you got to be pretty hungry to want to eat that. But no man gave unto it. He would have been happy to eat what the pigs were eating, but nobody gave anything to it. And now notice this, verse 17. When he came to himself. Now what does that mean? Think about that expression. When he came to himself. We know kind of in usage what it means, but think about what that's saying. He came to himself, meaning it's suddenly he remembered who he really is. That's what that means. He came to his senses, we sometimes say. But what it really means is, when it says he came to himself, he came to the realization and recognition of who he really is. And who is he really? It says here, he came to himself and he said, how many hired servants of my father have bread enough to spare, and I perish with hunger? He remembered his father. And he remembered that he was a child of his father. Though he had done wrong, though he had done everything wrong, see, Jesus, this is not a story of real people. Jesus is making this story up. He's making it up to make a moral point. Why did Jesus make this son? He portrayed him as doing everything wrong, of wasting everything. Not part of it. He wasted everything, he did everything wrong, and he's with the pigs. But he says he came to himself, and he said, how many hired servants of my father? He remembered his father, and he remembered that he was still the son of his father, even though he's in the pig pen. They had the servants have bread enough to spare, and I perish with hunger. And listen to this, verse 18. I will arise and go to my father, and I will say to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and before thee, and am no more worthy to be called thy son. Make me as one of thy hired servants. Now, two things have happened. He came to himself, and he remembered that he has a relationship with a father. And the father is so good that even the servants have more than they need. Isn't that right? That's what he said. Even the servants have more than they can use. He's so good, he takes care of the servants. And not only did he come to a recognition of who he really is in relation to the Father, but he has a new attitude. He has an attitude of humility. And he's coming back with a humble heart, with a humble attitude. And he says, I'm not worthy to be called your son. He means I'm not worthy because of what he's done. He's not acted in a responsible way. I'm not worthy to be your son, but just let me live as a hired servant. See, his very humble attitude. Put me at the bottom of the workforce, and I will be like a hired servant. And so he arose and went to his father with this attitude in mind. It says he arose and came to his father. But notice this. Again, remember now, Jesus is telling the story. He's making up the characters to make a moral.